Join me in giving a very warm Rotary Club of Bixby welcome to Mr. James Pesch.
Thank you guys so much for being present today. I really appreciate the invitation, Jesse. Thank you so much. Really excited to be here. How many of you here can remember a time in your life where you were absolutely motivated to accomplish a goal? You knew it. You didn't have a question about it. The intentionality was there. You were highly motivated and on fire, ready to get that goal, right? So what caused that? Why this goal? What happened in your mind that caused this specific thing to be so important? Now, if you were to put that on a scale from 1 to 10, right now, that feeling that you felt in that moment when I asked you to connect back to that moment in your life, when you were really highly motivated, when you wanted to achieve something, if you were to put that on a scale from 1 to 10, hold up your fingers. What was that intensity level whenever you were thinking about it? Okay, we have a 10 here. What else do we have? 10s? 10s all around? So whenever you were feeling that now, you felt that intensity like it was at a level 10. So oftentimes what I found is that when we recall that moment, when we think back and reflect on that, quite often it can bring us right back to that moment. It can actually help us connect with that emotion, that intensity, that intentionality that we had at one point to achieve a goal. See, in 2012, whenever I weighed just over 300 pounds, I didn't know what it was that I had done one morning whenever I woke up and decided to change my life. I didn't know and wasn't aware of the process that my mind went through, but I was committed and ready to achieve that outcome. Now, what I discovered many years later was highly, highly influential for affecting where I'm at today. I actually became a personal trainer to help others connect with the same outcome that I personally had achieved through health and fitness. And what I found was after 6 years of building a very profitable personal training business, I was only at about 38% efficacy on getting my clients to actually achieve the goals they hired me to achieve. Now, most people thought that I was really, really good at what I did, and although all of my clients actually achieved excellent results, they still weren't quite hitting those goals the way that I was able to do when I committed my mind to it. So I couldn't figure out what was wrong, so I started investigating. I started asking a lot of questions to my clients. And sir, I'm going to assume that you enjoy pizza. Would that be a correct assessment? Now, obviously, we might have a little bit of a giveaway here with his socks. However, if you didn't notice the socks, you might actually have just guessed it because most of us in this room probably enjoy pizza, right? Well, one of the things that's easy to think about is something we enjoy like pizza. But if we thought about a variable that maybe we weren't attached to emotionally, or it was kind of neutral, let's say the word duck. If I were to say the word duck, Tom, what pops in your head when I say the word duck? Aflac. Who said Aflac? Okay, great. Somebody else. What did you have? Somebody else have something totally different? Care to share? You saw boom, hunting, right? Okay, did anyone see this? Duck out. No? Did anybody see an animal? Okay, how many people in here saw a mallard? Okay.
I heard one.
Okay. Did you see it in motion or did you see it sitting on her pond?
First one.
You saw it in motion. Okay. So what you'd find if we went around the room, every single person in this room would have a different representation, a specific representation on what that word duck means to you. Now we have one guy shooting and the other one in insurance. These guys maybe need to get together, right? But here's the thing. What I found was even something as simple as pizza comes to our mind a different way for every single person in this room. Some of us, it's emotional, it's vivid, it's in high definition, in color. We can see the steam coming off of it, right? Others of us, it's maybe further away from us. It's not that big of a deal. Maybe we're not that connected to this thing. But what I found was that all of us, whether it's something we hate or whether it's something we love, there's a picture, there's a movie, there's a way that we represent that concept to ourselves. What I found was that it's very easy once you find the way that your mind actually brings that to your recollection. Once you find the way that you connect to something emotionally, you can map those across. So if it's something that you hate, like housework, as opposed to something you love, like eating pizza. When I say housework, there's probably a representation in your mind of how that comes to your mind. Some people say it's black and white. Some people say it's fuzzy. Some people say it's really far away from me. But it's not the same way you see pizza. Right? So what we do is we start to actually force ourselves to think about the housework in the same manner we would think about the pizza. So what I started to do was get my clients to connect with what it was they wanted rather than what it is that they had. And we started to connect what it is that they didn't want to do, like eating healthy and exercising, to things they did want to do. And we started having them represent those things to themselves and visualize what it's going to feel like if you actually enjoyed working out, if you actually enjoyed eating healthy. How would it feel? How would it look? How would it sound if you actually were able to accomplish that? And what I found was after a few months, my clients didn't need me anymore. Yay, right? So they're all able to mentally engage and accept what it is that they want, their goals. They're able to emotionally compel themselves to achieve them. Well, they don't need me. So all of a sudden, my wife comes to me and goes, hey, I'm really glad you found this new thing that's really effective. We're not making any money. So then I was like, okay, how can I utilize this? How can I connect people with the best version of themselves in a way where it's on a grand scale, on a way where we're actually able to do this in groups? So we started doing corporate training, we started doing public speaking, we started teaching people how the mind works and how to connect with your best version of yourself. When you think about yourself, what concept comes to your mind? A lot of times when we think about ourselves, we think about the qualities that we wish we had, or the things that we'd like to improve. Well, that's the reverse order. If I were to tell you, don't imagine a black cat running across the floor right now. How many people saw the black cat? Okay, so this often happens whenever you go see a counselor or a therapist or someone in my industry in life coaching where you come to them and you say, I don't want to overeat anymore. What happens in the brain and what do you visualize the minute you say, I don't want to? Pizza, right? I don't want to overeat. I don't want to do that negative thing. Immediately, we represent that thing back to ourselves, and we start to feel that anxiety, that depression, that worry. And once you're in that emotional state, it is almost impossible to break it and to get on the other side, to connect with the best version of yourself. So it's imperative that that is what we do. We actually utilize the model of looking at the areas where we're successful, the areas where we're good at something, and using that model to branch across to the areas that we need improvement. So we utilize where we're successful. We think about our best version of ourselves. What would it look like? What would it feel like? And what would it sound like if I were a champion? If I were connected to the best version of myself and accomplishing and achieving the goals and the outcomes and the intentionality that I actually desire, how would that look? How would it feel and how would it sound? And start thinking about what it is you don't want and stop thinking about the black cat running across the room that you don't want to see. Okay, so quite often, the reason I use that demonstration is to get you to understand that whenever we start to talk about our lives in the way of things that we don't want, you're actually reintroducing that emotional negative state. So as we start to consider what we do want, I have a very simple and easy method to get you there rapidly. Would anybody like to hear about it right now? Awesome. So if you have a pen and paper, I want you to go ahead and take it out. And don't feel like you can't flip over the sticky note with the dates on the back. All right, so what I'm going to have you do is draw a line down the middle. And on the left-hand side, I'm going to have you write at the top, have. And on the right-hand side, I'm going to have you write want. Now, don't get too upset if you don't get this down on paper, because you can go to my website and get this transformation in a video for free on my homepage, okay? JamesPesch.com, if you just want to write that down. JamesPesch.com. And that is my business card on the table in the middle with the JP logo on it. Also has my website. However, if you don't have a way of writing this down and doing this, you can do this later in your own spare time. If there is an area in your life right now where you'd like improvement, where you're frustrated, where you feel like that you no longer want that anymore in your life, that goes in the have column. We write it down. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is, a negativity in your life, whether that's a career, it could be a substance abuse issue. Whatever that rut is in your life, we're going to connect you to the best version of yourself now and get you on the other side of that. Okay? So whatever it is that you have right now that you no longer want, I want you to put it down. Put it down in the have column. Now, no matter what it is that you want instead, it's the antithesis, not a restatement of what it is you don't want. Okay? So I'm not going to have you write in this want column, I don't want what I have anymore. That is not what we write. We write the solution. We write the outcome. What is it that you do want? Clearly, vividly, I want the visuals, I want the emotional way it's going to make you feel, and I want to know how it's going to sound when you have what it is that you want. And in that one column, I want you to write in one sentence what it is you want instead of what it is over in that half column. And go ahead and do that now and write what it is you want. Positively stated, not a negation of what it is you have that you no longer want. Positively stated. I want this. Now, how's it going to make you feel whenever you have that? Is it worth it? This is where you determine whether or not it's even worth it to actually sit down and visualize the outcome you want. Now, what happens in the mind whenever you see somebody eating a lemon? What happens to you guys? Your lips purse, right? You start to salivate. Now, the reason that happens is a little known phenomenon in the brain called mirror neurons. Now, mirror neurons are the way that we learn human behavior. We watch another human walk. How many of you have seen little children, if they have an older sibling, they learn to walk much faster? You guys seen that? So the reason why that is the activation of mirror neurons. When you begin to visualize the outcome you want, you stop visualizing what it is you have that you don't want. And you begin connecting with that outcome, that successful solution on the other side. When you begin visualizing that, what happens in the brain is the same thing that happens when you see someone sucking on a lemon and your lips purse and you begin salivating without even having to think about it. Your body does it on its own. What begins to happen when you create vivid, clear outcomes that you want, the brain begins to connect with that. The limbic system activates and you begin salivating. You begin, actually your lips begin to purse. Emotionally, you begin to commit to that outcome. The more vivid and the more clear it is, the more you will want it, the more you will be driven to do it, and the more your physiology will change. Your body language will change. Your demeanor will change. Your language patterns will change. Everything about you will commit to that outcome the more vivid and clearly that you can see it. Everyone okay with that? All right, so what we do now is we make sure that we sit down and we clearly communicate that with ourselves. We see ourselves accomplish that goal. We see the outcome on the other side. And then the best thing to do is to make sure that you've given yourself permission to achieve it. Make sure that it's okay to get it. And let me give you an example of this. I had a woman hire me one time who wanted to quit smoking. And normally with me, that's a one-and-done session, okay? She wanted to quit smoking, and she came to me and she said, can you use neuro-linguistic programming or hypnosis in order to connect me with the best version of myself, get me on the other side of that, and no longer addicted? I said, hey, sure, that's not a problem. This doesn't take a long time. However, why don't we sit down and make sure that you actually are ready for this, and that it's going to be a good thing for you. 15 minutes, cup of coffee, no big deal. We sit down and I ask her, we get all the way through it. She wants it. She's tired of the feeling. She's tired of this thing that she's addicted to. She wants to be on the other side of it. We get down to the end and I say, is there anything good that smoking is doing for you that you're not quite ready to let go of yet? And she was like, no, I can't think of anything. I said, no problem. Is it going to affect anyone else negatively? And all of a sudden I just saw her face drop. It was just like you could tell we weren't going to be able to work together. And I wasn't sure why yet, but we were about to find out. Every evening whenever I come home, my husband and I go out to the back porch and we sit down and we have a cigarette and we talk about our day. It's where we connect. Really? Is there any other way to get that time? Is there any other thing that you could see that you'd be able to do together in order to make that connection every night and be able to have that intimacy? I don't know. I think I'm going to have to talk to my husband. No problem. Go home, talk it out. If you guys come up with a solution, a way to move forward, then we can sit down, we can have our session, and you'll be on the other side of this thing. She calls me back in a week and says, hey, we both agreed to be healthier. We both agreed to reduce the amount of smoking that we do, and we've agreed to only smoke when we're together on our back patio in the evening. Okay. She's happy with that. That was a goal. That was an outcome that she could live with. She gave herself permission in that arena. And sometimes, guys, that's what it is. It's your outcome. It's your solution. It's the goal you want. A life coach does not coach you into the best life from their perspective. They coach you through the life you want. Yeah. So that's what I do. If I can't help you or somebody you love, then I'd love to be your friend. Does anybody have any questions? Thanks, guys. That's it.
Do you work with people that just have a really hard time envisioning making things vivid and clear? Are there any tips that people, I think, are more imaginative and use their mind in that way better than others.
Absolutely. So one of the primary purposes people hire me is to discover their linguistic patterns. Most of us have 4 different types of linguistic patterns that we follow, and what this does is it demonstrates how we represent the world to ourselves. If you're a visual person, you're going to be the type of person who wants to see it clearly. You want to know how it's going to look, map it out, make sure that we discuss the vision. All of those are visual linguistic frames of reference. So most of the people in here, if you're a visual thinker, all of those words really made you connected with them, you understood them well. Now, if you're an auditory person, chances are you're going to want to know how it sounds. Let's talk about it. Does it sound right to you? I'm not sure if I'm hearing you correctly. These are all auditory ways of communicating. So if you're more of an auditory person, that made more sense to you than the visual linguistic frames of reference. If you're a kinesthetic person and a feeler, you're going to check your gut. You can go with your instincts. Okay? I don't know how this is going to feel. And I don't feel right about this right now. These are all kinesthetic people. People that primarily think about the world through touch, okay? Sensation and emotions. The last category that we typically find is auditory digital or internal dialogue. These are people that represent the world to themselves through having a conversation with themselves constantly. Data, facts, figures, calculations, processes, things like that. Love to process that. We should talk about that, discuss that, and calculate the outcome, different things of that nature. Those are all linguistic frames of reference that are going to be more internal dialogue. So one of the first things I do is we take a test. It's 5 questions long. It lets us know what your primary representational system is. And then we begin working through a pattern of being able to help you understand the nature of the goals and outcomes that you want through your linguistic patterns. Does that make sense?
That's great.
Awesome. Yes, absolutely. We'll start here and we'll go this way, so don't let me forget.
Real quick,
Yes, sir.
on your nutritional journey, what diet did you land on?
The very first one that I utilized to lose over 100 pounds was the whole foods plant-based diet. Primarily, if anyone's interested in that, you can get the Fire Engine 2 cookbook, and you can pretty much follow that through. That was my journey. If you want to know a little bit more about macronutrition, micronutrition, and the things that I recommend, that would probably take a one-on-one conversation because it's vast. I've done every diet that you could imagine: Atkins, ketogenic, plant-based, vegan, all sorts of diets, and I can give pretty detailed information about all of them, why they might work for some and not work for others, and different things of that nature. So, and a lot of times remember that the goal is not always weight loss. So sometimes people have different goals for their nutrition. So, great question. Thank you very much.
Following your dramatic weight loss, how long did it take you to lose that weight, and what was your fitness regimen like?
Sure. So I guess what would be really a way to segue into this is to tell you why I initially made the decision. I was at a Christmas party where I was a community director for Lindsay Management in Arkansas. And my wife and I worked together as a team managing a property. And we won Manager of the Year, but I didn't walk away with that because all I could think about was the conversation I had with one of my colleagues the night before. And he said, so man, I think it's cool that you guys are rocking it up there in Bentonville and doing great with your job and the community. Who's going to raise your son whenever you die of a heart attack, James? They just straight up said that to me right there while we were hanging out with a bunch of friends. And I was like, what the hell, Gene? That was kind of harsh. Saved my life because I couldn't let it go. It just molded over. And the pain of thinking about someone else raising my child because I didn't make choices that I could make was enough to get me to find a solution. Now, what I actually did the next morning was what in neuro-linguistic programming we call the swish pattern, where I actually took an image of the me that I was tired of being, and I smashed it with an image in my mind visually of who I wanted to be. Okay, and I did it intentionally, emotionally. I didn't realize I did it at the time until years later, researching and discovering these techniques. But that's how I did it. And that's what worked for me. And so I adopted the whole foods plant-based diet after watching a documentary called Forks Over Knives. I highly recommend. And then followed up with Food Inc. And then after that, my whole agenda was to eat healthy. That was it. I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to eat healthy. Forget all this exercise, forget all this stuff. I don't need any of that. I'm just going to eat healthy. After about 3 weeks, I had so much energy, there was no way I was just eating healthy. So I started running, started with a mile. Then I had still too much energy. That wasn't enough, so I started doing P90X in the evenings. After 6 months, I had lost over half the weight after a year, over 100 pounds off, and I've pretty much maintained since 2012.
Yay.
I saw some other hands here. Yes, Jesse.
When's your next workshop?
Okay, so one of the other things that I do is I teach workshops and seminars, not just private ones for corporations, but we also have public events that you can buy tickets and come to. Right now I'm working with Improving Lives Counseling Services. Okay, and we're offering continuing education units for those who are wanting to get involved in mental health care and things of that nature. I'm working with Neil Ewing doing that, but it is open to anyone. And the next workshop that we have is on destroying depression, and that's this Saturday. Yeah, this Saturday at 9:30 a.m. at the bridge.
Awesome.
Yeah. Anyone else? I thought I saw another hand in this area, but okay. Great, guys, thank you so much.